everyone, it's Hailey, and today I'm going to be sharing some books that if you liked this one, then you might like this one. I have done so many of these videos and I still love to do them. They are some of my favorites because I just love recommending books based on something that like someone has already enjoyed. I feel like it is the easiest way to recommend anything, so I quite have a good time with these. But I did actually want to do something kind of fun for this one. So you guys might remember that I did a video about a year ago where I chose what you read next. So I would like you all to comment down below with whatever you are currently reading, and then I'm going to do a video pretty soon, not exactly sure when, but fairly soon, recommending a book to read based on what you are currently reading. So usually I'll do that on Instagram, but I thought it would be really fun to bring it to YouTube because it's pretty much the same concept for this video, but it's more challenging because you give me the books and then I need to come up with what I think you should read next based on that, like assuming that you like what you're currently reading. That being said, I have lots of recommendations to talk about today, so let's just get into it. So I just wanted to pop in for a second to thank the sponsor for today's video, Luna. I have always really struggled with sleep. Once I'm asleep, I stay asleep generally, but falling asleep is always really difficult for me. I find it so hard to get my thoughts to stop. My mind is just racing when I'm trying to fall asleep. So the Luna app has been so helpful with fending off the racing thoughts that I can have when I'm trying to get into a restful state. The Luna app helps me get into the right mood for sleep and calms my racing thoughts. And it's perfect for storytellers or story lovers because it actually is telling you a story. So there is a very calming narrator who is telling you the story, walking you through the sleepscape, and it's also visually pleasing. It's so beautiful, and the sound just puts me into the state that I need to be in to fall asleep. There's a ton of different options for stories and they all provide such an immersive experience, so I definitely recommend that you check it out. The app is available on iOS and Android, and I will have a link down below so you can check it out for yourself. So by clicking that link down below or scanning the QR code that is on the screen now, you can get a 7-day free trial of the Luna app, and I'm sure you guys will find that it helps out. It will help you calm down and get into a sleepy mood, and it really doesn't take long either. That's like the best part. It takes like 10 to 15 minutes and then I'm out. So definitely if that sounds like something that would help you out, then you can check it out down below. First of all, if you enjoyed Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson, then I think you should give The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes a try. So both of these are mysteries that are set, like the setting is a very big thing. So we have a boarding school in this instance where the character is going to this elite boarding school where there's only like 10 students and they all have this specialty, and there's an age-old murder mystery that was never solved, and you're kind of alternating between then and now, hearing about that old murder mystery, but also present day when our main character is attending this school and there are more murders that have started to happen. But the setting is a really like twisty, weird mansion where there's all sorts of passages, and even the owner of this estate, or not estate, but even the owner of the boarding school didn't want to know where all the passages led. So you have a super similar setting in The Inheritance Games where the main character has just inherited this giant estate, this giant fortune of this billionaire who she's never met, and he recently died. So she is living at his estate with his basically snubbed family, which includes his grandsons and his daughter and his son, like basically the entire family, but the grandsons are the most important. So it's also this mansion that there's all sorts of different passageways and riddles that are playing out over the course of the book. So these are definitely very different because you have a murder mystery more so here, and in this one it's really the question of why did she inherit this fortune, why didn't it go to his family, what is happening. But both of these stories are steeped in questions and have a fascinating setting that will entirely suck you in, and you will be having a lot of questions yourself. So for these kinds of videos, I don't like to give you a book that is like exactly the same. I like to give you something that has a similar similar vibe, and for that reason, I think you would probably enjoy one or the other. It doesn't mean one is better than the other at all. They are just something that they've got that vibe, you know, so you have a good chance of liking both of them if you liked one of them. I definitely think that is the case with both of these books. They are really interesting mysteries that do something a little bit different, but have kind of a similar framework in a way. On a different note, turning from mysteries to more of contemporary, if you enjoyed With the Fire and High by Elizabeth Acevedo, then I think you would probably like The Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow by Laura Taylor Namey. Both of these books deal with food at the forefront, and they are also stories of self-discovery, really. So in this one, we have a young mother who she has a passion for cooking, and she is hoping to go to this cooking program, like she's in a cooking class, and she's hoping to go to this cooking program, and it's in Spain, so she's hoping to travel for this cooking program. And she also has her abuela with her, and their relationship is really at the forefront of this story. And then in this one, we have a character whose abuela has just passed away, and she's trying to deal with that. She has experienced a lot of loss lately, but she used to love cooking with her abuela. She loved baking, she just loved cooking all sorts of Cuban dishes, and she ends up going to England to try and kind of get the ground under her again, because she has been having such a hard time, and she starts cooking again and starts kind of transforming and dealing with the grief that she has been struggling with. I think the family relationships in both of these stories are very prevalent. Obviously that cooking plot line too. Both of these stories have such an amazing way of describing food. Like, oh my goodness, it made me really hungry. And they also both have that family at the forefront. So obviously we have food and an amazing way of describing it in both of these books. Like, they will make you hungry for sure, but the writing of both of these is very lyrical, and you have a traveling aspect. In this case it is Spain, and in this case it is England. I would say the traveling aspect is a little bit more prevalent in this one, but I think the main similarity for me between these two, besides the food and the traveling, is the family relationships and the culture that comes with that. Both of these characters have such a strong relationship with their family that is at the forefront of the stories, and also their culture is very important to them, and these stories were both steeped in that culture. It just flew off the pages and completely immersed me in their world and the heritage that they had and what they had grown up with. So I think they are both definitely really great reads that if you haven't read either of them, you should just read both of them. Next up, if you enjoyed Time of Our Lives by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Broca, then you should give Today, Tonight, Tomorrow by Rachel Lynn Solomon a chance, because you'll probably really like it. So this author duo actually does have a book that just came out that is very, very similar to this one, but I didn't really enjoy that one. That's why I'm not mentioning it here, but it is called What's Not to Love. So if you are interested in something exactly like this plotline, then you might want to check that one out. It just didn't work for me. So the plotline of this is that it is an enemies to lovers academic rivals story, and it is so fantastic. But the way that I see these as similar is because they deal with that transitional period between graduating high school and going off to university, and all the questions and the unsettling time that it really is, and they both do it in a great way. So in this case, we are following two characters who are on a college tour, and they end up meeting up, becoming friends, all of that jazz, and they're kind of having contrasting struggles. So the one character can't wait to go away to university. She has this overbearing family that she loves but wants to have some space from, and then the other character is dreading it, doesn't want to go away to university far from home because he believes he has to take care of his mother. So you see their opposite views of things and how they interact and how they kind of disagree on that. But the academic thing is definitely at the forefront of both of these stories. They're not both enemies to lovers. Like I said, What's Not to Love would be a better comparison if that's what you're looking for. However, that in-between period is the main topic and the central time period that you're following in both of these books. And I loved how that that was dealt with. There are so many decisions, and I think each of these characters, they all had a different perspective on it, so it was a really multifaceted story in terms of both of them. That was a really weird way to say that sentence, but you get the point. They also kind of have a traveling aspect, if you will. In this case, it's going on college tours in the States, and then in this case, it's a scavenger hunt around Seattle. It's actually a really interesting sort of game setting, but I just think these books have similar values and that they are both really good. Next up, if you enjoyed American Royals by Katharine McGee, then you should read Tokyo Ever After by Emiko Jean. You should read this book anyways. I loved it. It was so good, but this is a book that definitely could be compared to any like royal YA story, whether it's fantasy or contemporary, primarily contemporary though, but I will probably include it in future if you liked this videos. However, I wanted to start off with American Royals because these have a similar romance story. So this is actually, American Royals is an alternate history story where at the end of the Revolutionary War, George Washington was offered a crown. So now there's a monarchy and it is following the descendants. It's still the Washington family. You're following the different siblings in the Washington family, the one who is next in line for the throne, the one who is very far down the line, all of them, so you get a look at everything. And there is a guard and royal romance in here, which is why I compare it to this one. So this follows our main character who finds out that her father, who she never met before, is actually the Crown Prince of Japan. So she ends up being thrust into the royal spotlight and royal life in Japan. She goes to Japan, meets her father, and there's also a guard and her romance here. I think if you loved the romance in this book, you would definitely love it in this one, and also just the royal aspect of it. So obviously it's a little bit different in that respect because this character is just finding out about royal life and getting used to it for the first time. Meanwhile, these characters have grown up with it, but you still as a reader are introduced to the royal life and what it looks like in America in this alternate history story. So I think it's an interesting way to read a similar story with a similar sort of romance plotline, but also very different and unique at the same time. And this book is just honestly so cute and enjoyable. This next one might seem a little bit obvious, but I still think it's worth mentioning, so that's why I'm including it in today's video. But that is, if you liked Heartless by Marissa Meyer, then you would probably love Unbirthday by Liz Braswell. So both of these are obviously Alice in Wonderland retellings, and the chances are if you liked one Alice in Wonderland retelling, you might want to give another one a go. But particularly these two I mentioned because they are my favorites. I feel like these ones stay the truest to that main Alice story and the whimsy of it and just the nonsensical nature. In Heartless, we are following the backstory of the Queen of Hearts, finding out how she became the villain that you know from the Alice stories. Meanwhile, in Unbirthday, it's actually set after the events of the original Wonderland story, the Disney version, and you're following Alice as she is faced with another challenge and she needs to get to Wonderland and save Wonderland again because it is in peril and she is running late. She needs to take care of things. So I love that one is before and one is after, but they both just stay so true to that main story. I felt like I was reading an actual Alice story, like a canon Alice story, while reading both of these, and that was just so great. If the nonsense is what you love from the Alice universe, you are sure to enjoy both of these. And I felt like they also managed to stay true to who the characters were. So the Queen of Hearts in this case, I felt like it was very true. Like I could see how she made that transition throughout the book. And in this case, we have Alice, she's older, but I felt like she seemed like the Alice that I would think she would grow up to be. And that was just so lovely. So definitely both of these are fantastic Alice in Wonderland retellings. Next up, if you enjoyed To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han, then you should try A Taste for Love by Jennifer Yen. There are many similarities between the two of these. Baking is very prevalent in both of these. Like, I feel like not so much enlarging, it is more so a central topic of this story. However, it is still a main part of the main characters' lives. The other thing is an older sister that they're trying to live up to her expectations, and they have a deep admiration for their older sister, and also the rest of the family comes majorly into play here. And we also have fake dating. To All the Boys I've Loved Before is one of the best fake dating stories stories that I've read. It is so good, and this also brings that fake dating aspect into it. So there's a little bit of everything that you get in here, but it also is a very different story than To All the Boys. Like, it's not a carbon copy. There are just a few similarities here and there that make me think that if you liked one, you would for sure enjoy the other. Next up, if you enjoyed Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim, then you should try out Star Daughter by Shveta Thakrar. I actually read both of these books earlier this year, kind of close to each other, and they reminded me of each other a lot. Not in terms of the topic, because the topic is super different in each of them, but in the fact that they had this very beautiful, magical, whimsical world and a competition at the forefront of it. So in Spin the Dawn, it is a tailor's competition. This is kind of a loose Mulan retelling, and we follow the main character trying to save her family by going into this royal emperor's like tailor competition to be the emperor's main tailor. I don't know if I explained that very well, but it's also a really interesting and fascinating world. And then in Star Daughter, we follow a main character who is actually half star. Her mother's a star, and she ends up getting called to the heavens where the stars are to compete in this competition because stars act as muses. So it's a competition where whoever they have inspired, they're trying to see like who has been inspired the most or who is the best at what they've been inspired in, I guess. You get the point. Basically, just very unique and creative competitions, very unique storylines overall, and some great characters that I loved reading about. So definitely two really amazing fantasies that I would recommend. Actually, there's also a celestial aspect to both of these, because this obviously with stars, that's very celestial. I don't think I need to explain that further, but in this one, she has to create a dress using like the tears of the moon, the laughter of the sun, and then I forget what else it is. I don't know, but basically she has to create like these really magical and dangerous gowns, and they have a similar celestial aspect in that sense. Next, if you enjoyed I Want to Be Where You Are by Christina Forrest, then you should try out I Love You So Mochi by Sarah Kuhn. These are stories that are set over spring break. One is set in America on this road trip, so kind of a travel aspect there, but then this one is also set on a trip, but it is actually to Japan. I think the main comparison between these two that I found is the romances are adorable. Like, it's kind of enemies to lovers in this case, and in this case it definitely isn't. It's more of like an adorable love at first sight sort of thing. But even so, the main characters are working on following their passion. So our main character here is a ballerina, and she is following that passion, and our main character here is an artist, but she's also really into fashion, and she's trying to figure out where she fits and where she belongs, really. So I found these both to be sort of coming of age stories where our characters are dealing with this intense like creative love, and they're trying to figure out where that makes them fit in the world, how they can turn that into a forever career if they even can, if that's something that they can do. So they're really going through this transformative period where they are discovering where they are meant to be, what their place in the world looks like, while also having an adorable romance at the same time. I think that both of them having such creative passions definitely brought like a comparison to mind, but they're really great, cute, quick summer reads that also have an impact to them as well, with each character trying to discover more about who they are. They also definitely both primarily deal with family expectations and not wanting to let family down, and how they can make themselves happy but also keep their family happy at the same time, and if there is really a hope of reconciliation there. Next, if you enjoyed Long May She Reign by Rhiannon Thomas, then you should try out Blade of Secrets by Trisha Levenseller. So both of these are really quick and easy fantasy reads. This is more fantastical than this one is. Like, I find that this one is a very low fantasy because there's not much magic to it. However, the main comparison for me between these two is the fact that both of these characters have anxiety, and they also have a passion that they feel like they can escape to. So here we have a blacksmith, and here we have a character who loves science. This deals with a mysterious murder aspect to it as well, because the character is like 27th in line for the throne or something ridiculous like that. So she's never expecting to come to the throne. However, then there is this massacre, and suddenly she finds herself on the throne, and she is dealing with that. And in here we have a character who is a blacksmith, and she loves her craft, she loves her sister, she's very close to her, and she ends up creating this weapon that's more powerful than she could ever imagine, and ends up having to go on the run with it. So you kind of both have characters characters that find themselves in sticky situations that they were never expecting. And they also have for me, I found it personally a really accurate and relatable representation of anxiety. I think this one is more so like generalized anxiety disorder. This one is more so social anxiety, but I still did find it really relatable, and I felt like both stories did a good job of blending that fantasy with that mental health aspect. But overall, they are really great fantasy reads that I don't think get talked about enough, really. And the final comparison that I have for you guys today is if you enjoyed When Dimple Met Rishi by Sandhya Menon, then you should try out Slay by Brittany Morris. These stories are about girls in tech, and that is why I think that they are great comparisons. This one is more so a really cute romance, and this one doesn't so much have that aspect to it. However, I feel like you have main characters that are very passionate about tech and their love for it. So in this case, it is a computer engineer, like more into that sort of thing. And in this case, we have a character who has created this whole video game that is very popular. But I still think, you know, they both deal with girls in STEM, which I think is amazing. And they also deal with it in a contemporary setting. They have some great friendships, great relationships going on. They're both just really fun and enjoyable and different stories. Okay, so those are all of the comparisons that I wanted to talk about today. Let me know if you have read any of these, your thoughts on them. I love doing these videos, so let me know also if you would like to see another one soon, because I can definitely do that. And don't forget to let me know what you are currently reading as well, if you would like me to recommend what you should read next based on that, although it's probably going to be like way after you finish with that book, but still, it's just for fun. And thank you once again to Luna for sponsoring today's video. Don't forget to check them out in the link down below. But thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, don't forget to click that subscribe button and then click that bell icon so you'll be notified whenever I post. I post new videos 2 to 3 times a week, every single week. So I will see you in another one soon. Bye!